Well, we're
Yes,
happy to
I'm
be
making
here
sure the
with
others
everyone
can
today,
hear.
and welcome to Pure Presence Book Club. And the book we're following right now, most of you know, is Being Aware of Being Aware. And this is, this book to me is like a must read for anyone that is in an awakening, that is really interested in the awakening of what you are. This is it's so easy to read. It's so easy to understand. And Rupert is a bit redundant in it because he gives you so many ways to look at what awareness is and what being aware, how you distinguish being aware. Before we get started, just want to pause and invite all of us to just be present right now, being aware of this moment. And then stay in this place of awareness. Just allow us to just hold the space of awareness while the activity of experience is occurring, and the movement and the sounds, the sensations, the thoughts, the comments that are offered, the activity on the chat board, all of these things are being are being seen and also known from a place that isn't the thinker, but is aware of all of these experiences. Welcome, Andrea. Namaste, my friend.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everybody. You know I'm all technically challenged in some ways, or so it appears, but I do tend to just stay right on it and not let go. And eventually how to do this comes into my awareness. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody. It seems to be something beautiful for me to just work through and stay clear and in that peace that truly is in the background of all of this, even though I want to be on time for everything. And but this chapter, which is the nature of awareness, I found absolutely beautiful. And it starts, it kind of broke up, for me, it sort of broke up into like two aspects. In the opening part, I absolutely, fell in love with describing the nature of awareness, its beauty, its peace, its completeness, its wholeness, its fulfilledness, its causeless joy, its knowing, and the infinite, the eternalness of it all, and that it is the open, allowing existence of all experience. And the second part of the chapter, it's only like an 8-page chapter, but boy, it's chock full. It's absolutely fabulous. Talks more about how the mind perceives awareness as opposed to how awareness perceives itself. And so I thought that was interesting, but I really love to start where Rupert started, which was in the beauty of awareness itself. And I have to say, in kind of reviewing some of it this morning, I was crying because I really honestly do have the experience of being awareness and being aware of the awareness that I am. And there is always this peace and this very quiet loving joy behind or in everything. And even though I wasn't able to hook into this, book club a few moments ago, I saw that this awareness was making jokes, and the mind was getting nervous, but it helped the nervousness by making some jokes and then leading me to the other computer and eventually coming full circle around. And just with that experience alone is how it works all the time if I forget myself as the pure, beautiful, fulfilled, peaceful awareness that I know that I am. And it doesn't seem to take that long for it to just absolutely saturate my experience again. And I didn't ever think, and there's that word think that always tells you it's mind, and that I would know peace. And that no matter what's going on in my life, I would know joy. And that I would be aware that the mind might be saying, well, what do you have to be happy about? Or what's going on with you? Shouldn't you be doing this or that? And, prodding me on to feel anxious or nervous or walk on eggshells around my own self, because it never was actually anybody else. It was always me. And in the chapter, Rupert, brings up how he just really shines the light on the beauty of awareness and the openness of it. And it allowed me to sit in the beingness of myself, in remembering myself through the words in the chapter.
Yes.
And it's not so much that I'm forgetting of myself, but there is a way that Rupert writes. And see, now I'm going to get clumped again here. That there's no room. He never leaves room for anything but awareness. Even and I noticed throughout the chapter, there's, in the short chapters of 8 pages, the short chapter of 8 pages, he mentions 9 times aware, knowing, or awareness. Being aware, knowing, or awareness. And he always groups them together as one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that's very helpful, because sometimes the mind wants to break up awareness, and knowing into 3 separate things, because it loves to break everything up into pieces, because that's what it does. It fragments everything. And in sitting in the awareness of even the words, it's like touching the awareness and helping bring it shine, having it shine even more. And I love the whole idea of causeless joy, but I also find that there's causeless peace in my life. And my mind could say there's lots of reasons for me not to be peaceful. There's lots of reasons for me not to be joyful. But that doesn't stop me from being peaceful and joyful all the time. And
why would you say that is?
Because the awareness keeps saturating and overriding anything that the mind has to say, perceives about it as, no, that isn't exactly how I would say it. I would say that it's because I know myself as awareness. And before, I only knew myself as a body, as a mind, in the world. I mean, the mind actually thinks that awareness is within it, and that it carries all the qualities that a body would carry: birth, appearing, disappearing, death, aging, and that's what Rupert brings out in the second half of the chapter. And I was very identified with that all my life, because there wasn't anybody telling me that I wasn't that. They were telling me that the image in the mirror was who I am. And that wasn't my experience. And it's still not my experience. My experience is like this big, wide, open space.
Yeah.
I don't experience a face walking around in life. I experience openness.
Yeah. And I think Rupert actually answers the question, and you answered it very well, but he also answers it in the first paragraph where he
Mm-hmm.
says, just as a screen is never agitated by the drama in a movie,
Mm-hmm.
so being aware or awareness itself is never disturbed by the content of experience. And that's what happens. That's what I hear you say when you're saying that everything is saturated by and from awareness. It's not. It's no longer. It's no longer the attention that's being given just to the object. It's really being allowing the experience to occur without being in the knowingness of its own space of not being disturbed by anything.
Right.
Right. It also, and Rupert breaks that down into the 3 steps. Yeah.
Yes.
And so over on page 27, it says, you know, and to what speaking to what you just said, Bill, it's like, you know, the awareness can get very absorbed in just the details of life, and oftentimes fail to forget itself or seem to forget itself. Just like when you go to the movies, you forget the screen is there.
Awareness gets absorbed in the.
No, the mind does.
Oh, the mind does. Okay, good.
The mind does. And awareness is aware that the mind is doing that, because awareness never changes. Awareness always stays. It never goes anywhere. It never becomes anything. And so it's always there and always available. And that's truly what's going on with me now, is I know that I am always available to the mind to bring it back into balance with the awareness and the knowing that I know that I am. And so as it's saying in the second paragraph here, it says, if we are absorbed in a movie, it may seem at first that the screen lies behind the image. Likewise, if we are so captivated by experience, which is what I was talking about, that we overlook the simple experience of being aware or awareness itself, because awareness is our primary experience. If we first locate it in the background of experience. So the first step, being aware or awareness itself, is recognized as a subjective witness of all objective experience. And that's like our first experience of awareness, the way that Rupert's saying it now.
Yeah.
But also, just like in the movie, if you look more closely, you know, you see that the screen is not just in the background of the image, but entirely pervades it. And so an awareness completely pervades the experience, all experience. And when you get that there's no experience without the awareness or the knowing of it, then the witness, as the subjective part of it sort of collapses. And you end up with, as Rupert on the next page gets to the third step, which is that pure knowing, being aware, or awareness itself is all there is to experience.
Yeah. It's, have you ever watched a movie? We watch a lot of movies. And
I love movies.
Have you ever watched a movie coming from this place of context?
Mm-hmm.
And just experimented on noticing your attention so fully invested in the experience of the movie, and then pulled, just sort of experience pulling back as just pure awareness as the witness of the experience of watching the movie? Have you ever done that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
I heard somebody else is piped in. I heard somebody say, uh-huh. Yeah, it's great to, I think it is almost a training ground for being able to do that when you're watching a movie that you're like very, like you're on the edge of the seat, And when you notice that, you're so fully in the movie that you actually, for a bit, you've forgotten that awareness is in the background always, without any judgment, any emotion, any perceptions. It's just sitting in the background as witness.
It's just completely neutral.
Yes.
Mind, on the other hand, is not, but the
Yes.
awareness is completely neutral.
Yes.
It's like if I ever watching a movie, I get a little bit afraid in a particular moment, like, oh no, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I go, Andrea, it's just a movie. And I can do that in my life. Like something comes up and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I go, hey, it's going to be fine. Grace has got you. You know, Grace always has you, Andrea. And Grace is always going to work it out. And over and over and over again, I am reminded in this experience that we've named life in a place called world, that I'm completely indestructible and unchanged by anything that goes on in this experience called life.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's interesting. It's almost like in the training or the practicing, I feel that the new experience is being witnessed as the mind relaxes into the primary being. It becomes a softer experience, a less charged experience, a more stable, more harmonized experience. And somehow, I don't know how this works, but somehow it actually does change. It affects the experience that's held, because our experience is only the activity of what we believe is occurring.
Well, you just described my life.
Right.
Because I am a much softer being. I am, even with my own self, easier to be with. I used to worry about everything. I used to have this constant sense of stress about me, and always needing to be the best and achieve and do this, do that. Never seemed to be able to relax or sleep really well. Now I sleep beautifully. I am so relaxed in my life. In fact, my sister-in-law sent me something the other day because I had forgotten something about myself in a job that I had a number of years ago. And I says, oh, I'm glad you said that. You know, until you said it, I forgot that I even worked there. And she said to me, she said, that's because you're so relaxed in your life. And so my relaxedness is something that my family's witnessing, that, and I am awareness, because awareness is peaceful. It's calm, it's joyful. It's exactly what you're talking about, Bill. I feel like I'm like this big open screen that allows everything in, and I'm not being critical of it, which means, you know, I'm not being critical of myself, I'm not being critical of others either. Although I have to say that I still have that little bit of peace, a piece of myself that is always a little nervous that I'm going to be criticized. And so I work with that one. That's an old one. But being more relaxed in life has helped that a lot. And I'm aware of the changes in myself. And as a result, my view of myself, my view of others, my view of my work, my view of the world, everything is from that point of view now. Not looking at the world afraid of it. I'm not looking at opportunity. Like even, I mean, to do something like this could be a very fearful thing. I would never have been able to do something like this a while ago. I would be too afraid to expose myself, or to make a mistake, or to disappoint. And learning to understand the truth of who I am, which is the awareness and the beingness of everything, it helped me let go of all of that.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful way to live. And as I said this morning when I was reading it, I started to cry because I was just I'm like, wow. I mean, I could cry now. I never believed it was possible. I wanted it to be possible. And it is possible. But it does take effort to keep reminding yourself and to pull yourself back, just like you're saying in the movie. Can you step back from what you're absorbed in? Step back and notice who's noticing.
Yeah.
You know?
It's there's a section here on page 26 that says, it's a third paragraph down, awareness is inherently whole, complete, and fulfilled in itself. Thus, its nature is happiness itself. There's the happiness plug, because all of us in our seeking, before we find and know our true self, our true nature, all of us are seeking happiness in some form, some kind of way. And not a happiness, but here, when you find this experience of presence, of pure awareness, and you know it to be true, because as Mark said in the chat board, he's become aware of being aware. And once we become aware of being aware, that becomes primary. It first starts in the background of experience. The awareness is sort of, and that's the neti, where I'm not this, I'm not that. But then the awareness, as you said a few minutes ago, the mind dissolves into the knowing of awareness itself, and awareness moves to the foreground and saturates all experience as the known of the being, as the knowing of itself as awareness, but activities still rise in this experience.
Yeah, the activities now, or the thoughts, are more, that's what's in the background now. Whereas before, awareness was in the background. For me, I am the foreground of awareness, and all the fears and the beliefs and things that had to dissolve in order for this to occur for me, those have so profoundly dissolved that I really am living a very joyful, peaceful experience. And it's beautiful. All experience is made of knowing. All experience is made of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. And I love on 28, it says, all there is to a thought is thinking, and all there is to thinking is the knowing of it. And all there is to emotion is the feeling, and all there is to feeling is the knowing of it. And all there is to sensation is sensing, and all there is to sensing is the knowing of it.
Yes.
So the other thing for perception is perceiving, and the only thing of perceiving is the knowing of it. So I'm aware that there are thoughts coming and going, feelings coming and going. All of that is intermittent, but my awareness of it is not. It's constant, it's steady, it's allowing, it's non-judging, there's no criticalness to it whatsoever. And I used to just live a very judgeful and critical life because I live from my mind. And
so what I was, I'm going to finish what I was saying here, because it says not a happiness that depends upon the condition of the mind, body, or world, but a causeless joy that is prior to and independent of all states, circumstances, and conditions. And so that is the living awareness. It's a living awareness, also experience. Awareness experiences itself and knows itself to be all that is. And at the same time, recognizes that nothing that occurs in experience is separate from itself.
Right. There's not awareness and experience. They're not two things. It's one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of comments I want to take here on the Q&A. An anonymous person put in, only experience is evident, but the awareness that is making experience knowable is not experienced. Only experience is evident, but the awareness that is making experience knowable is not experienced. I don't really agree with that statement, but thank you for putting it in there, whoever you are. And there was another one on the chat board that said, I think Catherine made this great point. She said, awareness dissolves the mind once we put our attention on awareness, which is always there. That's exactly what you were saying, Andrea.
Yeah.
And Mark said, in my presence, I find an awareness with awareness. Yes. That's awareness being aware of itself. That's the recognition. In my mind, that's enlightenment right there. That's the definition of enlightenment, is being aware of being aware.
Yes. Yeah. I love the Rupa's definition on 27 of knowing versus mind. In the first paragraph, it says, being aware or awareness itself is never conditioned by anything that takes place in experience. Knowing, being aware or awareness itself is the essential, irreducible essence of the mind prior to its conditioning in the form of the objective experience.
Yes.
So I love that. I thought that was great. Oh, Rupert, that's so good.
Yeah, because what that says, Andrea, is that there's the mind doesn't
there's no mind without awareness.
The mind is not a problem.
No.
The mind isn't a bad word. The mind isn't don't listen to the mind. The mind is a necessary ingredient in the experience of experiencing your experience, and it becomes way, 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 way better when you recognize that you're not just the mind, but the mind is also included.
Yes, because this isn't about getting rid of these things. This is about being able to understand them from the point of view of awareness. And awareness's point of view is, hey, allows everything. It allows the mind, the thoughts, because nothing's bad, nothing's horrible. Again, it's awareness is independent of all the states and conditioning and the circumstances that go on in the experience.
Yes. So there was a question sort of from when you were talking about 5 minutes ago, Andrea.
Yes.
From Tambra, and she put a question on the chat board. How did these experiences dissolve? How do these thoughts, feelings, emotions, how did they dissolve?
When I bring my attention, I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
No, that's what she said. That's her question. How did they dissolve?
By constantly, every time. Okay, I saw your hand moving, so I thought I was cutting you off. I don't mean to do that.
No. I think it's a delay. I moved the hand over here. I'm good.
Okay. All right. For me, it was being aware of a thought coming in and feeling, oftentimes at the beginning, most of my thoughts were really uncomfortable. And so I would just notice that the thought was there and that it was uncomfortable, but I didn't act on the thought. But I stayed with the feeling and the sensation of it, and I didn't run down the rabbit hole with it. The thought might reoccur, and then it would just stop. Once I noticed it, I noticed that it also would stop. And then I also noticed at the beginning that it would come back right away, and it would start again. And I would notice it again. I'd be aware of it. I would not follow it again. And this was a process that I went through over and over again. And I realized at a certain point, the mind would give up. And if it wasn't gonna get me to run down the rabbit hole with it, it became less and less and less and less active. So now, and so you could call that dissolving or less active, or however you want to state that for yourself. It's a very individual experience.
Yeah.
But that's how I did it, by just not making the thought go away, but noticing the thought every time it came, and noticing how that thought created sensations and feelings for me. And if those weren't thoughts that felt good and felt like great sensations that I would want to be involved with, then I just sat with it. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't try to make it go away. It just always sort of left on its own. Yeah. And something beautiful would take its place.
Yeah. And this occurs, this seems to be a gradual experience for most of us, because the mind has been, it used to be that awareness, which is always present, which is always what we are, and never not been, it used to be that the mind was that the mind so quickly attached itself to awareness that awareness believed, or it felt, or had awareness made itself or reduced itself to the object of experience, or to the mind's belief that it was that. And it's in the, when a little bit of light comes in, a little bit of understanding comes in, all of a sudden there's enough space between the object of experience and the witness of it that we notice that we're seeing the experience instead of being the experience. So there's just enough space between the experience and the noticing of it to recognize that we are not the experience primarily, but the experience is being seen. And from there, we start to awaken from the dream of believing that we are the experience.
Right. Well, that's going back to that first step, being the subjective witness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but I also noticed in that process that I was in that there were a lot of feelings, emotions that I might not have wanted to face or to sit with. And I noticed that, even as children, we found out very quickly that the mind is a way to not feel. Oftentimes, it's a distraction. And just like you're describing, Bill, a distraction of confusing awareness and experience and subject and object and like that. But the mind oftentimes gets really active if I'll speak for myself. If I'm near something that is difficult or was difficult for me to feel, my mind would get overactive, and I noticed that the feeling would go away. So I became aware that the feelings and thoughts were connected in a way that was not helpful for me in being able to dissolve these, and to understand how to move through it and come into the full awareness that I'm in now. So that was a process too, and we're oftentimes taught, not necessarily very directly, but indirectly. It's like when we're crying, oh, stop crying. Oh, there's nothing to cry about. Crying is, again, that's the mind making, because the mind is very, it makes a lot of judgments and is very critical, whereas awareness is completely fine with crying. It doesn't see crying any different than anger. It's neutral. But we have a lot of beliefs that around grief, and you should get over that and don't cry. And so what were we going to do with these feelings that we had? Then we go into imagination, and we get into all kinds of other things. And those are the places that take us down the rabbit hole and keep us disconnected.
Yep.
Truth of who we are.
Yep.
So I think we have to watch that too as you're learning how to dissolve. It's not to get rid of anything, it's actually to embrace everything.
There's a mention on the chat board that you can expand on that on page 32. To know one's true nature of pure awareness is the ultimate healing. And that really sort of encapsulates all of the comments on the chat board. It encapsulates the commentary that I have shared. It encapsulates what you just said, because it says awareness never experiences its own appearance or disappearance, its own beginning or ending, its own birth or death, in order to claim such an experience. Awareness would have to be present prior to its own appearance,
Right.
beginning or birth, and after its own disappearance, ending, or death. The finite mind imagines that awareness disappears in deep sleep, but in awareness's experience, it is the finite mind that disappears in deep sleep, leaving awareness all alone. And then finally it says deep sleep is not the absence of awareness, it is the awareness of absence.
Yeah.
That is so good. I often have, pondered that idea that, okay, so what is occurring in the deep sleep? What is occurring with awareness in the deep sleep? Well, the mind wants to say, well, I'm consciously, nothing was happening. Maybe dreaming was occurring, or nothing at all. I had a very restful night. 10 o'clock was the last thing that is remembered, and 5:30 a.m. is the next thing remembered. What happened in that what seemed like a time elapsed period, and awareness breathed the body. and then in proof that awareness always is present and never not present, when you do the practice of being aware, and you close the eyes and you inquire this awareness that is aware of the sound of this voice, this awareness, when you go within into the primary sense of being aware, aware of the senses and the sounds and the sensations, but also asking the question, does this awareness experience right now where I find myself residing, does it have an age? And you can't find an age right here. And you ask yourself, does this awareness have a gender? It does not, it cannot find a gender. You ask it if it is this awareness tall, fat, short, skinny, any of these things. Awareness cannot find itself other than the awareness of its own being. And that is for me, you cannot deny the witness of awareness being aware of itself when you go to that, just that simple little inquiry right there.
I just lost your audio for a minute. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was giving you an opportunity to speak, and the final paragraph that on this page that someone referred to, it says, just as nothing happens to the screen when a character in a movie becomes sick, so nothing happens to awareness when the body falls ill. This is really good news for all of us, really. And I saw someone mentioned on the chat board a few minutes ago this is such good news, and it really is. It says it is for this reason that to know one's true nature of pure awareness is the ultimate healing. That is the ultimate healing, because we're not, and it's not, it has nothing to do with the body, because we find ourselves as the wholeness that we are, that is not a body. Are you having trouble hearing, Andrea?
Maybe I'm on delay, but I see your mouth still moving, so maybe there's a delay. So, okay, that's I'm on this. So what I wanted to say was, what's really interesting about the whole health thing is, again, awareness doesn't get sick because it doesn't, like the mind thinks it doesn't follow the body. It doesn't have the same limitations and characteristics of what we know as body and life. It's completely the other way around. But what's also interesting for me, just in terms of health and working with this for the last 10 years, is that I cannot remember the last time I was sick. I don't get colds. I don't get headaches. I can't remember ever. I don't get the flu. I mean, I don't have any health issues. I don't take any medications. I sleep beautifully. I'm happy. It's sort of like the experience of the physical life is also mirroring this experience of myself as awareness. That's what's really beautiful.
Well, the other side of that is, and I agree with that. I think that's a great. It is one of the perks. It is one of the perks, but it's not a necessary perk.
No,
because awareness doesn't care.
I know
About the health of the body, and Rupert says here in this final paragraph of this chapter, he says, if one knows oneself as pure awareness, or the simple experience of being aware, one is always in perfect health. Nothing ever happens to awareness. So if the body was sick, that's okay.
Yep.
I'm okay with, I don't mind, but that's a training. That's because the body very much does mind. The person does care. So you have to find yourself in the pure awareness experience to have the experience that's being described here, and to have the experience that Timothy just mentioned. To heal is to make whole. That is to know thyself as wholeness, as being, as pure presence. Because what happens is that the body does get sick. The body does have things that occur to it, and that doesn't mean that you're not awake. That doesn't mean that you're not having the experience of awareness. So I just want to make that distinction, because many masters, Ramana Maharshi, Papaji, Muji, all of those guys, I don't know about Babaji. He seems to be like of a higher order evolution, but all of those masters that we revere, that we respect, and give reference to, the bodies got sick, but they were very profound sages in the experience of awakening and enlightenment.
Right, and I'm not saying that that I'm putting all the focus on that. I don't know. I think we have a time delay again.
Just keep talking. I'm good.
Okay. Well, I want to be clear that I wasn't making the correlation that because I am aware of myself as awareness, that my body is, completely, very extremely healthy, and what I had expressed earlier. And it's not like I don't stub a toe or cut myself with a knife or do things that I don't have sensations with. But all I'm saying is that it's wonderful for me at this point to experience both simultaneously.
Yeah. I agree with that. I didn't want to leave some of the guys or gals that are watching that may have some serious situation happening in their life right now and thinking, oh, I'm not getting it. I must not be getting it because I'm sick.
Thank you, Bill, because that I certainly wasn't implying that. So
I know that you weren't. I totally get that. Yeah.
Okay.
So tell me, what was your favorite? We have about 10 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your favorite part, your favorite section in chapter 2? Do you have a
well, I could tell you my favorite line.
All right, give me that.
Nothing ever happens to awareness.
Yeah.
It's the last line.
Yes.
Nothing ever happens to awareness. And that's what really the whole chapter is telling you. That it's not affected. It's independent of all those states. It's whole, it's complete. And I really did love the idea that, that this isn't something that's fragile, as far as we can see the body as being fragile, but awareness isn't. And that it is who we are. It is inherently whole, complete, fulfilled, causeless joy. I mean, what's not to love about any of this?
Yes.
And even focusing on the mind and making room for the mind to be part of awareness. I thought that was beautiful in this chapter too. It doesn't make the mind some evil thing that we have to get rid of and we have to overcome. It's just something to notice and to be aware of and to include. Everything's included. Awareness is an all-allowing experience.
Yes.
Just like my experience of when I look out, I look out into the world and it doesn't say, you can't include that plant, you can't include that tree or that chair over there. It's everything, always.
Yeah.
And if I want to know who I am, then I point out and I'm not going to see myself. But if I point the finger right at myself and look at my finger, I can see who I am. And that's invisible, beautiful, expansive, eternal awareness.
Yeah.
And every time if I get a little off in the daytime sometimes, or something might come up, all I do is take my finger and I just point and say, remember who you are, Andrea. And I start laughing and I think, okay, well, there I am. I'm not that face that you see. I never see that in my world. I'm always seeing everybody else's. So I don't experience myself as a face or a body or an entity in that way. I experience myself as the awareness that's wide open and lets everything in. And what is better than that?
Yeah.
That's love.
There were a couple of comments on the board. It says someone said that, I didn't know this, Krishnamurti might have had or had Parkinson's. I think Krishnamurti had Parkinson's. And then Patrick Broders says, awareness is neutral, isn't it? Yes, totally neutral, non-judgmental. When we talk about happiness, joy, contentment, and all that's connected with awareness, then that's an interpretation of that and made into an experience, and in that way, no different of all our other positive, negative experiences. Does that make sense? Yeah, there's no in awareness, there's no label.
Positive, no negative.
Yeah, there's no labels. It's just awareness is, and that's it. Awareness just is. And it's the knowing of awareness that we identify the self. It is an old Bible statement that's brought into most of the traditions that I'm aware of, is to know thyself. to know thyself intimately. When I pray, I move right into speaking to the being as the being and as the mind that's speaking to the being, speaking to awareness. I'm speaking to the self that I am as God, as presence. There's no separation in any of that. When I speak to God, I'm speaking to awareness. When I'm experiencing and knowing awareness as what I am, I'm experiencing and knowing God as what I am. When I speak to what would AA would say your higher self, I'm speaking to awareness that is it's sort of, if you're going to use a name like that, like the Holy Spirit or the higher self, it's just a bridge to the awareness of what you are. That's all it is. It's just a word bridge to your state of to your beingness. And it says, somebody says, there is a liberating joyfulness. Rick said this. There's a liberating joyfulness and playfulness that comes with awakening. And Andrea is such a good example of this. Amen.
And I want to thank you. And I want to, you asked if there's something that I really loved in here. And on page 29, it goes to what you were just talking about. And it says, the absence of duality, separation, or otherness is the experience of love or beauty in which any distinction between a self and an object, other or world, is dissolved.
Yes.
That's when I was crying this morning. It was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's so beautiful.
Well, Andrea, that's what happens when you fall in love with another in a romantic relationship. All of the conditionals, all the conditions dissolve, and anything separate gets laid aside. You feel so fully connected with your beingness, with yourself as love, that you think it's coming from this person. And although this person may be bringing it out in you, in that momentary, or in that however long that experience of love, that beautiful innocent love expresses itself, there's no conditions in there. There's just only the love of the self that is occurring in this intimate relationship.
And what's so beautiful for me was that I fell in love with me, but not because I was in love with somebody else and it brought it out in me. It was something that occurred. I mean, that's what you talk about, blow the mind.
Yes,
It's like going, how's that possible?
Well, that's a necessary ingredient for a remarkable relationship. You must be in love with yourself if you're going to love someone else.
Absolutely. So
otherwise, you'll be looking for love out there and sorely disappointed.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, we all have done that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So in the final few minutes of our talk today, and thank you everyone for being here with us. We had a great audience, and we continue to be on Facebook Live with whomever's watching. It's being broadcast in a group of about 18,000. So I don't know how many people are going to get to rewatch this, but we're happy to have all of you with us today. And thank you everyone for being part of this book club. If you're watching on Facebook and you're not signed up and registered, go to billfree.com, look for events, and then the book club name for this book study is Being Aware of Being Aware. And there was one paragraph I want to mention, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Andrea. It says, this made me laugh. He says, likewise, the awareness with which our most intelligent thoughts are known is the same as the awareness with which our most unintelligent thoughts are known. There's no separation there. It's just, you know, and it's like if you've ever watched Arthur Gay teach, he is a brilliant teacher in person. And he comes to our Friday group and teaches on occasion, probably about every 6 weeks. I put him on the calendar over there. This is Arthur's teaching. I mean, he's just very clear on it. Welcome everything.
Yes.
Welcome everything. Open the door. Welcome everything as awareness. And from that, the personal self-identity that used to run the show, it will be pervaded and saturated to include all of those things, so your peace is not disturbed no matter what happens.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
That's my experience.
Yes.
That's my life. And I am so grateful.
Yes.
For every experience and every thought and every feeling and every sensation that helped me take one step after the other. Just like walking the Camino, is like you knew you were going to be able to do it. You just didn't know how that was going to happen. But to live life in joy, and not that there aren't interruptions sometimes with that, but the interruptions are so intermittent and so quick now that anybody who truly wants peace and love in their life is just to go deeper past the mind into yourself and just be aware, not be in judgment of yourself, not be critical of yourself, love yourself all the way through everything.
Amen.
Invite yourself in. When you're sad, go put your arms around yourself, love yourself until that's all that's left is love.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that closing statement, Andrea. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. That is a wrap for today's broadcast on being aware of being aware. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I love you.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Love you all.
Love you too. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let me.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.